This podcast episode has us introducing you to our BCEN and friend, Josh Wymer. Janie Schumaker and Mark Eggers talk with Josh Wymer about his healthcare journey that started right after high school and into his current 19 years with the Navy. Listen to Josh's amazing and fascinating career and where it has taken him. His heartwarming stories, great views, advice, and perspectives, along with his positive love for what he does, makes this an episode you won't want to miss. This episode is called Need to Get Something Done? Ask a busy person to do it.
Hello, and welcome to BCEN and Friends podcast, where we hold interesting conversations about learning with a range of thought leaders, BCN certification holders, and industry professionals. But most importantly, to create value and insight for you, our professional nurses across the emergency spectrum. We hope you find our discussions interesting, informative, sometimes funny, sometimes serious, but always valuable. I'm Mark Eggers, Manager of Education and Technology Services at BCN, and one of your hosts for today. And I'm joined by my co-host, Janie Schumaker, the CEO at BCN. Hi, Janie.
Hi, Mark.
In this episode of BCN and Friends, we have Josh Wymer. Janie, please let our audience know about our BCN and friend Josh.
Happy to, Mark. Josh Wymer is a Chief Nursing Informatics Officer for a large academic medical center with 10 health clinics spread across Southern California. He is also on the faculty at the University of San Diego's Hahn School of Nursing and Health Science, as well as the founding Chief Clinical Officer with Shifthive Incorporated, a pre-speed startup in healthcare workforce management space. His volunteer activities include currently serving as the Vice President with the Board of Directors for the Competency and Credentialing Institute, advocating for the more than 42,000 perioperative nursing and surgical services management professionals around the country. Josh, welcome to the BCEN and Friends podcast. We are so excited to have you on our podcast, and we're looking forward to our discussion today.
Thank you, and it's a privilege to be here.
Well, Josh, I think you have a little statement that you'd like to make before we get started, yes?
Yes, thank you. I just would love to share with your listeners that I will be sharing my own personal views, and the views expressed are solely my own and do not reflect the official policy or position of the U.S. Navy, the Department of Defense, or the U.S. government.
All right. Well, thank you, Josh. My first question for you, Josh, and I've been following you now for probably a little more than a year on LinkedIn, and you have done some amazing work. And you've got an amazing career. You've accomplished so many things. I'm just in awe when I stand back and think about all the things you've done. Can you please tell us a little bit about yourself and this amazing career that you've had so far?
Well, thank you. And again, it's a privilege to be here with you and your community. Journeys in healthcare as a healthcare professional start in the widest variety of ways. And mine began immediately after high school with the need to pay for nursing school. And so I began my career in healthcare as a nursing assistant, and ultimately through nursing school and progression in my career, ended up as a medical assistant in a level 1 trauma center in Seattle while still pursuing my degree. Post 9/11, obviously that was 9/11 was a very impactful event for our country and the world, and I decided to join the Navy. So at this point in time, nearly 19 years into a career in the Navy that began with service as a Navy corpsman for 5 years, and then very fortunate to have them the Navy select me for a commissioning program as a nurse where I attended Seattle University near where I grew up. Since that time, med-surg, emergency department, post-anesthesia care, ambulatory services, and then almost 10 years ago, I ended up participating in and graduating from the Navy's perioperative program, having spent the last decade in the OR community. So that journey has been absolutely fantastic within the Navy and the experiences I've had. And about 3 or 4 years ago, I I took my long-standing interest in data and the electronic healthcare record and innovation, and was very fortunate to have an opportunity to return to the University of San Diego to obtain my master's in healthcare informatics, and has led to many of the experiences and the opportunities I have now.
Yeah, that's a pretty amazing track record, and I would like to just thank you for your service on behalf of our listeners. I know each of them would like to have us thank you for your service. That means so much, and obviously you've made quite a difference in your career, and you've also published quite a few remarkable pieces that you didn't mention that I happen to know about because I've read a handful of them. So I would mention that as well. Tell me, Josh, what you're most proud of out of that amazing career that you just talked about.
Well, I think nurses come to this profession for many reasons, and something that sticks with me is from an article I read some years ago that there really are two reasons we become nurses. We either want to make a difference in the lives of individuals and communities, or we identify as or with a vulnerable individual or group. And for me, I'm most proud of making a difference in the lives of individuals and communities. And for me, that is the identity that I've chosen, the reason I'm in the career. And I think as we mature as nurses, we ultimately find ourselves with opportunities to shape that journey for others. And I think another component of that I'm very proud of is, just developing teams, workplaces where the staff, not only do they become a better nurse and develop that competency, but they grow and flourish as a person. And I think that is something that every nurse, especially as we've been in the profession for any period of time, should be remarkably proud of.
Well, that warms my heart to hear you say that. The one thing that troubles me is all the experience, nurses that are so experienced, they're retiring. People are getting older and they're retiring, and so much of that knowledge is going out the door. And it's so important to build those teams and make a difference for those that we're bringing along. So that's incredible that you're most proud of that piece. I think that's great.
I do think we have an immense opportunity. We need to recognize that the nursing profession is chronologically advanced in age on average. We need to recognize that as we mature, because I'm advancing myself every year, that we are bringing up those eager, hard-charging, innovative teammates with us, because the nursing of tomorrow is going to be founded on the experiences that our teams are having today. And my involvement in the nursing community, whether it be locally with my own facility, whether it be in the state here of California, or whether it be on a national level, is totally predicated based on the fact that we all have that opportunity to shape what that tomorrow looks like for a continued engagement and excellence out of our profession.
Agree. Absolutely. So important.
Very good. Absolutely is right. Thank you, first of all, for your service. I want to say it also, and I can't tell you how much that does mean to all of us. Absolutely. So thank you. Josh, if you could tell us about a person or moment during your career that has made the biggest impact on you. I'm sure there's been a lot of them, but what one comes to mind if you think about it?
Oh, and I have been mulling this over for many years, actually. What would be defining moments in your career? What has shaped you to guided your decision making? Brought you to where you are as a person and as a professional today. And I think it is really hard. I've been in healthcare 24 years now. It's really hard to isolate it down to one moment. And I think that's probably the same for any number of us. But I do have a moment that it does has come up many times since I had the experience, and it involves a very young man. I was on my second combat deployment with the Navy, and we were between missions in North Africa, and we had an opportunity during the downtime to just very spontaneously go out and serve at an orphanage, provide some care at an orphanage in Djibouti City. And, it's hard to not even be emotional today about that, because you go to this orphanage, there's a single nun there in her 60s who's dedicated her life to the nation of Djibouti and the people of Djibouti. And she's caring for 80-some orphans in a compound that's no larger than the property that anyone who owns a home lives on here in the United States. And, there's not a blade of grass, there's not a stitch of shade other than that created by the two-room building that she provides all the care in, one for cooking and preparing the daily meals, one room for schooling, for sleeping, for every activity that those children have. And arriving there, as very privileged, as very just even the absurdity of what we all wear on a daily basis with, our wealth and our opulence from a developed country, arriving there with, the only thing those orphans have is the clothes on their back and the meal they're going to be served, and that the protection of the nun there at the orphanage. And while we were delivering the medical care to about a certain percentage of the orphans, one young man came up and he had a bandage on his foot, and he had a bug bite that became very infected, and that's pretty notorious in that part of the world. And as I removed his bandage, it was quite a remarkable wound. And I looked up at him to see a response, controlling my own facial expressions as we do as nurses. And he was just beaming back at me with the most amazing smile, the widest eyes, the clearest, desire and need to engage with another person. And I think that's the kind of life directing and life changing experience many of us have. Your community in the ER sees a lot of trauma. We see the same in the OR. We see a lot of emotional components of our care. And when I think about not speaking the same language as this very young man, probably 6 or 7 years old, but what you could tell, he was hungry for that engagement, and even just the kindness and the various hand gestures, the level of appreciation and joy and happiness you can share and convey, and relief and just gentleness of spirit that was coming from him. That's something that you cannot move past without recognizing.
No, that is a great story. And as you told it, and you told it very well, I could just picture that. And it made me smile, actually, to think about that. So thanks for sharing that. I appreciate it. So, Josh, what is next for you? Tell us about your next career move or any projects you're working on.
Oh, well, as Janie noted, it's good to be busy. And so I'm especially proud of my current doctoral work at Hopkins that's looking very closely at something that's close to all of our hearts, which is nursing specialty certification, and its impact on professional development, its relevance on nursing practice. And I'm especially excited for what this could mean. There are a lot of good people working on this topic, but I'm excited for what this could really mean for outcomes, what this could mean for, moving our profession forward, and the whole concept that ultimately I've previously published on in partnership with Dr. Christopher Stuckey, that, this really should be a national standard. At some point, again, not presuming on what our profession would choose, but ultimately as a course of our progression as nurses after our education is achieved, after we've practiced for a defined period of time, whatever that would be, that specialty certification should be the next step in validating and developing ourselves as professionals. So to me, this is a very exciting work, and again, it's going to be another year of effort. But I'm very excited with the focus of my project being the perioperative community, to be able to hopefully learn some lessons that can be translated to other communities across nursing. And I would be remiss to not acknowledge Dr. Jim Stabinsky and the team at CCI and their support for my work.
Mm-hmm.
Super, great.
Yeah, that's very exciting, Josh. I can't wait to see that, to see the results from your work on this. You're speaking my language 100% now, and that research to further articulate the need for and the value of certification for nurses is critical. We need more of it. We don't have enough. So speaking of specialty nursing certification, I did want to ask you about that because you are a firm believer in it. Can you talk a little bit more about why specialty nursing certification should be the standard? Why is it so important? Why are you doing your doctorate work on it?
Sure, and this is always a conversation that I love to have, and I think that we all should sort out how we feel about it and how we wish to contribute and we wish to engage with it, because I think it's going to continue to be a topic that's going to accelerate in the years to come. And I do want to backtrack just a little bit. I am pursuing my Doctor of Nursing Practice degree, and really leaning on a lot of great work that's out there by PhDs. So, as someone who, the whole purpose of my doctoral work is to focus in on existing research and, translating that to practice, evidence-based practice. That is ultimately the imperative. Nursing practice needs to be evidence-based practice. And, that is also my passion for informatics. That's my passion for good quality systems and applications that capture the data that we can use as a collective to identify trends and innovations and treatments and cures that then can be implemented by professionals such as myself who wish to focus and really enjoy focusing on evidence-based practice. And that has to be predicated on the fact that specialty certification is a validation of an individual professional's engagement and competence with that current body of knowledge. And without a doubt, specialty certification does pull the individual professional nurse, regardless of specialty. It pulls that nurse to the latest body of knowledge and, proves through their successful obtaining of a certification and renewal through activities, whether it be continuing education hours or points activities, as we now have with in the perioperative community, that this is really the way to demonstrate and add value. And in my previous writing with Dr. Stuckey, why, as a profession, would we not embrace an opportunity, much like our physician peers, to embrace specialty certification, board certification, whatever your preferred nomenclature is, and begin to carry that message to our patients and share that same value proposition with our communities, because our physician partners are very good at messaging this. This is a part of their culture. Patients aggressively pursue care from providers who are board certified and have validated skills. And to me, this is a natural fit. This is a progression of our growth as a profession, and it's a very attainable part of continuous and ongoing professional development for every nurse.
Wow, that's really well said. I couldn't agree with you more. I have been saying for I don't know how many years now, our physician counterparts, this is part of their culture, and how do we make it part, how do we make nursing the same way? And nursing really does need this as a profession. Absolutely. And along with that, of course, goes lifelong learning. And I know that you are very much a lifelong learner. So Josh, what kind of learning engages you? And for our listeners who are thinking, wow, how could this guy who's doing so much find time for that learning? How do you do it?
Well, very recently, somebody said to me, if you need to get something done, ask a busy person to do it. And I think that's probably more true than not. And I think that for me, all of my interests, all of the things I have pursued are remarkably complementary, and they stem from a pathway that I could never have predicted from the start. And it starts with pursuing education, pursuing learning opportunities that are practical for your own professional development, making them achievable, but not so achievable that you're going to wait till tomorrow. Because if you don't progressively achieve something today or this week, it's just going to be a longer journey. And I really have a firm belief, and I communicate it to my teams and to those I have an opportunity to engage with, that why not accomplish that small piece of your future today? Because then it puts you on that much on a higher plane, a higher platform to jump to the next opportunity. And I think that each activity that you pursue, viewing it as a step to something more, will create a positive spin on it. When you may have worked a 12, 13-hour shift, it's your fourth shift in a row, and you have something due. If you want to pursue academics, something's going to have a due date, and you have something due in the next day or so that does involve work and introspection or academic research, literature reviews, et cetera. Making sure that it really has meaning. And I think that tying that back, I'm not a foo-foo, follow your passions person, but I think if you are passionate about the topic, if you are passionate about the impact that you can have and that what you're pursuing will have, that it really ultimately, it makes that work, if you will, into, for me, it makes it way less of a task, and it makes it more of something to achieve, and creates a positive spin on it that makes it just one more step or one more link in the chain. And I think that ability to be passionate about something, you don't have to solve the whole equation. We are a part of a huge profession. We're part of a huge team. Even at the local level, we depend on others to succeed on every shift. But if we're able to be that small part, serve our fullest to that team, I think, for me, I look back over my career, there's a remarkable connection with data and innovation and engagement with systems and applications. And it's really proved itself to be quite valuable. And that only is evident now, but it really has driven my pursuit of that next opportunity. And I think that when we look at that, if you're going to go to your part of the question about what does it take to have a career path, again, no one of us is alike. And that's what's so incredible about nursing, that we can all come together collectively and achieve, and we aren't fundamentally stepping on each other's toes. No one is holding each other back or should be holding each other back. And are we pursuing those opportunities?
That's really a great way to look at that lifelong learning, to look at it as though it is part of something bigger and it's taking you to your next step. I really like that perspective a lot. I think sometimes it can just feel overwhelming, like, oh my gosh, I need to do this, this, and this. And I did just work 4 12-hour shifts, so I'm tired. And I know nurses are especially tired more than ever right now. So I love the perspective that you just gave us. And I was going to ask you, if somebody really wants to take a really aggressive and meaningful career path such as yours, do you have any advice for them?
Well, I'm full of advice. I think that it's also about perspective, and I think, don't be me, be yourself. And if you are yourself, doors will open. Take those open doors, because if you don't take that open door into the next hallway where there is going to be additional opportunity, you're just delaying and preventing, extending the curve, if you will, on your own development and stretching yourself while it is uncomfortable. My first experience as an ER charge nurse was with 2 years of medical surgical inpatient unit experience. I was in Kuwait at a military facility on a combat deployment, and I was an ER charge nurse with 2 years of inpatient experience. So stretching myself there, yes, I had the skills. My leadership was not being irresponsible by putting me there. I had the trauma training. I had advanced, I was quite a accomplished ACLS provider, et cetera. But, pursuing that and embracing that opportunity, knowing who my resources were. Was I there being a cowboy? No, I was there trying to drink out of a fire hose, and I don't think I took a breath for a month, right? And I think that that's exactly how we have to approach opportunity. Is if something is of necessity or interest or a passion to you, you embrace it, and the necessity even makes it a tolerable and an achievable and a desirable learning experience. And I think once you move past necessity and you're at interest and passion, it doesn't feel like work anymore. And I would encourage the listeners out there, they are accomplished. They have so much to offer. Many of them have seen or done as much or more than myself. And so you can give and contribute at a very high level on a regular basis, but when it flows naturally and begins to complement, your activities begin to complement each other, that's when you'll know that you're having an impact. And I think that getting the junior professional to that level where they see the momentum and they see the opportunity, I had my own delays in that I did not publish or write academically for many years, and that was just a part of my evolution. And I would encourage anybody listening to think about what would be that next step that they can take their profession and their own career to the next level. And there is a next step, and that sequential action is going to turn into a really incredible journey for them.
Wow, that's great advice. Thank you so much. I'm feeling pretty inspired myself listening to that. That's terrific.
I agree. That was excellent. Excellent. So, Josh, I'm going to ask you a few rapid fire questions. What would you be doing if you were not in your current role? What else would you be doing?
I have a lot of interests, but professionally, I always wanted to be an architect or maybe even a landscape designer. So something totally different, probably.
Great. Good. And I have 3 categories regarding favorites. So number 1, what is your favorite book?
Well, and I think there's a lot of good literature out there. But I think that given where we're at in our time and space, what our country is dealing with, hopefully on the tail end of this COVID experience, if you will, and then socially with so many changes, I'd encourage people to maybe consider it's dense reading, but it is my favorite book, and it is by Solzhenitsyn, is that his profound text, The Gulag Archipelago. I think that there's a lot of lessons to be learned there. Again, it's not light reading, it's not a quick read, but just exploring who we are as an individual, as a profession, as a society, as a nation. I think there's a lot there. You don't have to agree with some of the conclusions of the author, but hearing about his journey, and he wrote that over 10 years, I believe in the 50s and 60s, in quite trying circumstances, will, first of all, put our own challenges into perspective, but then it serves some incredible leadership lessons as well as ultimately the ability to see ourselves as change agents within our own families, communities, and areas.
Great, thanks. How about your favorite movie?
Inception, without a doubt. I love Inception, and it's the layers that exercise your mind, and a component of that would be that it's very original. I do not appreciate a movie where I can pre-quote 5 of the lines just based off of the recipe out of Hollywood. So Inception's remarkable.
It is a good movie, yep. And how about a favorite song?
And I'm going to have to pass on this one because there are too many for all sorts of different reasons, but I would confess to, in my teens, loving Sting and the Police, which is horrific in some ways, but awesome in others. So again, I have a pretty eclectic taste through today, so I would have to decline a specific song.
No problem. Great, thank you. So how about hobbies or interests? What other hobbies or interests do you have that we don't know about?
Well, I first of all, I think it's especially critical to have interests outside of whatever your main work is. And for me, running is how I exercise the demons, if you will, and burn off the energy and think about what I'd like to achieve next. There's remarkable clarity in that intermediate stage of running where the pain starts to be replaced by some clarity and recognition of what you've achieved. So I think that's especially important. And then especially working with my hands has always been great for me. So I especially enjoy restoring vintage cars. But again, I had a little bit of a break with all the things I have on my plate there, but excited to hopefully begin pursuing that in the next couple of years again as well.
Excellent. Great. And then if our audience would like to follow you online, I believe you're on LinkedIn and Twitter?
Yes, they can find me on LinkedIn and Twitter, and it'd be absolutely a privilege to connect. And if anybody wanted to communicate about any of my previous work and their impressions or their perspectives, it's many of those are continuing to develop into other things and always eager to engage with professionals.
Excellent. And if people out there in the audience, if you want to find those links, just look at the description of this podcast and you'll find the information out there. So excellent. Janie, is there anything else you would like to add?
No, I'm just really excited to be able to spend some time with you, Josh, and hear all your perspectives and advice for us and our listeners. And you've had a remarkable career, and I think you've got a lot ahead of you still. And I, for one, am excited to follow you. So thank you so much for giving your time to our listeners and to us today.
I want to take this time to thank Josh Wymer for joining us for this episode of BCEN and Friends. And just like Janie said, Josh, thank you so much for sharing your time and your stories with us.
Thank you so very much, and it was a privilege.
And to all of our listeners, we hope you will stay tuned as we continue on with BCEN and Friends and bring you new and meaningful content and perspectives. If you have a suggestion for an episode, please email us at bcen@bcen.org. I am Mark Eggers with Janie Schumaker, and on behalf of the entire BCEN team, we thank and celebrate you for all that you are doing as professional nurses across the emergency spectrum. Until next time,